Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship, my money share, as we have an exciting Saturday slate that is all over the board. It looks like FanDuel is doing the first 3 games, then the next 4 games. DK has 10 games, and then the postponed Kansas City New York game is going to be on the main slates. It looks like at least for DK and Yahoo. So we've got our work cut out for us, Adam. But first of all, as one Dan Strafford always likes to say, how the hell are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to. I always like when we have like a good afternoon slate, and then you follow it up with a decent evening slate. I'd say it makes for a really fun day. So pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So DraftKings is starting at 210, and they are running 10 games. We've got Yahoo is doing their all-day slate starting at 210. That's when the first games go off, and that is just for, it looks like, tiny contests or tickets. Their very early only slate is going to be 3 games, and then their early only, as opposed to the very early only, is going to be the 4 o'clock games. And over on Yahoo, they are running the main slate with 6 games at 10 o'clock. So I do want to call that out, as they are one of our presenting sponsors here. They have a $4,500 guaranteed no management fee, $3 entry, and you can put up to 10 lineups in this contest. There are 1,500 spots. So as soon as you hear me say this, go get your contests locked in. You'll have until 7:15 to start. It's the Fox afternoon games. They're on the West Coast. I still default to that, having lived on the West Coast 80% of my life, but I'm an East Coaster now, so it's a 7:15 start. But we do have those late games, and then of course Yahoo is also running their 2 o'clock contests, which will encompass all of the games. So I will call that up so we have some pricing. And they do something a little funky, and I haven't looked at it yet, Adam, because I haven't done the all-day slates there. They have a 16-game slate, which means they're counting both of the double header and then the early game for Kansas City and New York, which I guess that was probably the doubleheader. So make sure you understand the rules there. I won't look them up just yet. I'm guessing any pitcher is fine, but there's probably something unique dealing with how the batters are handled. I thought at one point, one of the sites, and there have been so many.
I think it was Fantasy Draft.
Was it Fantasy Draft used to say, this is you taking the batter on the early game or the late game?
Yeah, I think it was Fantasy Draft that would run both games with doubleheader, and they would just distinguish. But again, it was so long ago since I played there that I don't remember exactly how they did it.
Yeah, it looks like, let me go up here. It looks like if I click on the early game for the Yankees and KC, it has that time slot. But if I click for the late game, it has that time slot. So let's look at the whole slate and solve this once and for all. What if I look up Whit Merrifield? He has 2. Oh, there we go. That's what they're doing. So Yahoo does, you have to choose which time slot your players are playing in. So that's very, very helpful and kind of neat, actually. So you can choose Whit Merrifield. He's in there twice. You can pick him either for the early or the late game. Just make sure he's in the lineup for whichever one you're choosing. And of course, his compatriots and opponents. All right, Adam, we have gotten some really good feedback here as we go, just focusing on the pitchers as we walk through these games. Now, we're going to do that again. So we're going to cover the first 10 games here. Again, you will get Adam and I at 11. We'll do 11:15 since it's a 2:15 or 2:10 start, and we'll walk leisurely through every single game on the slate. And then at 6 o'clock, you're going to get myself and Chris Baggs running through those 6 late game slates. And anybody, send well wishes to one Josh Engelman, who had more sodium than any human being needs for a week in about 35 minutes, as he did complete the 100 pizza roll challenge live on air on the Live Before Lock show. Did you tune in at all to that, Adam?
No, no. But
all you need to do is click towards the end when they're asking him questions, and he just says, "It's really too hard for me to form words right now." That's all you need to know.
See, like I feel like I could do it too. I just would never want to.
Yeah, the pain and suffering involved, not so good. Someone was telling me they're like, Emac looks like a Baconator guy. And I'm like, I've never had a Baconator, which I'm assuming is something from Burger King or
I used
McDonald's.
to when I was younger, I can remember getting like Burger King. I don't even know if they still have them, but they had like triple stackers or double stackers or something. But it was basically just like you could. It was just like patty on top of patty with like bacon and just like immediate heart attack. But I remember just like crushing the whatever the biggest triple or quadruple, whatever it was, like it was nothing. And now the thought of it's just like disgusting to me.
Yeah, I remember we used to get somehow there were free tickets. They'd either give them out when I was in high school, or we had a friend that worked there, or I think we had a friend who was a weekend manager or assistant manager through high school, and he would give us free coupons for Big Macs or quarter pounders. I remember in high school I could do two of those. We'd usually go there before the movies, have a full meal, go to a movie, and then come back and have another full meal. But that was back when I could roll through 4,000 calories with literally no problem because I was in, cross country or track or basketball or whatever I was doing. Yeah, not so much anymore. I can have a Five Guys little cheese. I prefer the sautéed onions and sautéed mushrooms. That's it. With a little fry. I like the Cajun one. Jen, my wife, she likes the regular fry. So we usually get one of each, which gives us enough fries for the next day for breakfast. So
there you go.
Anyway, let's get on into this schedule. Starting off with our first game, doing a quick look. Doesn't really look like we have any weather issues. Pittsburgh may have a touch of weather, but they are on the 7 o'clock slate. So just be cognizant of that. Looks like nothing really more than roving showers or light rain throughout anywhere, which will have more clarity once the day starts and the game starts, since they go early. And don't forget, Monday is a holiday, so it's a heavy early slate on Monday with a lot of 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock games. It's similar to another Sunday slate there on Monday. Shout out to everybody that has given all that they have in the service of our country, so Adam and I can sit here and talk fantasy sports. All right, first game we have Chicago White Sox at the Minnesota Twins, looking like about 70 degrees at first pitch. A very, very nice day. No humidity, about 50%, which is nothing. And we've got Manny Benuelos, who I believe will be coming off the DL, against Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson, 8,500 on DK. Manny Benuelos, 6,100. Talk to me here about Kyle Gibson, because I don't want any part of Manny Benuelos going against the Twins, who are the leading run-scoring team in all of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, certainly no interest in Benuelos for me. Not very good, and a really, really difficult matchup against the Twins. As far as Gibson goes, clearly the better pitcher out of these two, but he's priced pretty appropriately, I think. For the season, he has a 24.2% strikeout percentage. That puts him kind of in the middle of the pack on this slate. So I don't really have a whole lot of interest in him. I think that he's kind of a guy where, if you're playing 150 lineups or more and he ends up in some lineups, then fine. It's not like it's a bad spot. It's not like he's a bad pitcher, but he doesn't stand out. Like, he doesn't really get you salary relief at that price tag, but he also doesn't get you really good projection. So it's really tough to get there.
All right, and just checking out here on FanDuel, we've got, you're not going to want to go with Benuelos. Kyle Gibson, 8,000 there. Again, mediocre price tag, not the best of matchups, so a tough one for him. Moving along, the first game of the doubleheader, we have J.A. Happ going against Jake Junis. There is no issue with rain or precipitation. It's going to be 80 degrees at first pitch, and we are looking at about a 10 to 12 mile an hour wind going out there to left center. Happ the lefty, Junis the righty. Both have some home run issues from time to time. We have one Kansas City team, and I wrote them up on the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article on my Friday slate as one of the stacks. So you can go back and look at that article. I may actually just kind of copy it over. The key thing I wanted to point out is Gary Sanchez, and I'm forgetting their names. The Japanese guy. Is he still in the mix? And then their other catcher,
Higashioka?
Yeah, Higashioka, and their backup catcher, who's kind of in between the two. They are 3 of the top 10 catchers allowing stolen bases on a per start average. So, and that's accounting for the fact that Gary Sanchez does play DH. So it's only taking his 26 starts at catcher. He is allowing, going from memory here, the third most stolen bases aggregate, but on a per game basis, he's right up there. And actually, all three of them are right up there. We know that Kansas City does lead the league in steals. You've got Adalberto Mondesi leading the league. Whit Merrifield is, I think, running around 10th, and going from memory, I believe Billy Hamilton is in 6th. So we do have hidden value here with stolen bases, depending on who the catchers are. We do have a double header, so I'm doubting Sanchez will be behind the dish for both of them. So keep that one in mind. If he's there or it's one of the other guys, it gets even worse when it's one of the other guys. What do you like here, though, from a pitching standpoint? Hap, the lefty, going against a team that will basically be able to pull out 7 righties and or switch hitters outside of Nicky Lopez, who is discounted at 2,800 there on FanDuel, and Alex Gordon, who later in his career has decided he's going to learn how to hit. Without Moustakas and Hosmer there backing him up, he suddenly decided he's going to hit. So he's been batting cleanup or 5th lately. What do you like here? First with Hap, then with Jake Junis.
Yeah, I mean, Hap really hasn't been very good this season. The price tag reflects that. His strikeout percentage is down from where it was last year, where it was like the second half of the year before last. He isn't locating as well with his fastball, and I think that's leading to his decrease in strikeout percentage. He's at just 18.2% for the season. Like, we're not talking about a small drop off for him. It's been really bad. So the price tag's okay. You do have some swings and misses in the Royals lineup, but you do also have some pretty decent hitters, especially towards the top, basically from Merrifield through Dozier, especially when you consider that Hap isn't great against lefties. So guys like Nicky Lopez and Alex Gordon aren't like easy outs for him necessarily. So kind of in the same category as Kyle Gibson for me, where the mid-range on this slate, I don't think has that many guys that really jump out, especially looking at DraftKings pricing. They did a pretty good job of pricing up the guys that I thought I was going to get to talk about here. So, yeah, I mean, Hap's okay, but I'm with you on the stolen base upside for guys like Merrifield, Lopez, Mondesi. I think that if I have to only choose one or the other, which obviously I don't because I'm a max entry player, but if I did have to choose one or the other, I think there's probably more upside in getting to Kansas City than there is in Hap.
All right, and then just one other thing to point out there on the doubleheader. Now, we're assuming Hap's going to go in the early game because that's what we've seen, but that could change. So they were going to go, they being the Yankees, we're going to go with Chad Green as the opener. He, went last Sunday as the opener and then pitched out of relief in the CC Sabathia game. So he should be good for one, maybe two innings tops, probably one and change. And then it's either going to be Nestor Cortez Jr., who was the guy that backed him up when he was the opener. They sent Cortez back down to AAA, but he did not make any appearances with Scranton Wilkes-Barre, but he is back up. But they also have Luis Sessa. So you're looking at some combination of these three guys. They're all right-handers. So that's something to consider there for the late slate in that one. And then let's see, I'm calling up my thing. So Kansas City leads the league with 48 steals on 68 attempts. The White Sox and Rangers are 35 of 46 each, and then Cleveland is right behind them at 33 and 46. That was going into Friday's game. Adalberto Mondesi is first in the league with 17 stolen bases. Hamilton is 6th with 9, and then Whit Merrifield is 10th with 8. And then Nicky Lopez was cheap on all the sites. In his first 3 seasons in the minors, combination of different levels, he averaged just over 20 steals. And then this year, before being called up, he did have 9 steals in AAA. He has not stolen one yet in the majors, but that is probably coming. So just wanted to point all of those little variables out there because, again, we have a really fun slate ahead of us. Heading on to the next game here, we have Tyler Mahle going against Yu Darvish. This one is in Chicago. We have a 9 to 12 mile an hour wind going out to right field. So, of course, we do not yet have a run total for this game. That's generally what Vegas does. They wait on it. but it's going to be 75 degrees there at first pitch in Chicago. That will be 1 o'clock local time, 2 o'clock Eastern. Any interest in Male or Yu Darvish? Male coming in on FanDuel at 8,300, Darvish at 89. Over on DK, it's 87 for Male and 93 for Darvish. Feels a little spendy considering we should have 20 options on DK.
I have mild interest here because the mid-range, like I had said, really, like once you get below the 8K range on DraftKings, you really run out of guys that you feel comfortable about at all.
And I'm interrupting just for a sec. 30 for Male on Yahoo, 38 for Darvish. So they're going to be similar in play, I'm guessing, with where you're going on this one.
Yeah, so 30 for Male on Yahoo is really, really good because the point I was going to get to is that I think he's a little bit overpriced on DraftKings and FanDuel for the matchup against the Cubs because it is a very good offense. You probably have the wind blowing out, and they don't strike out a ton. But I do actually buy into Male being good this season. He ranks 19th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage out of all starters that have thrown at least 300 pitches this season. At 31.4%, which is very good. I don't have the PCRA leaderboard in front of me, but he's in the low 20s or high teens there as well among all qualified starters, which is really good again. And he's a pitcher who in the past was good against righties and struggled with lefties. If you actually look at his heat maps on Brooks Baseball year over year, you see him every year starting to kind of like trend in more to lefties. And then this year, he's really just doing a good job pounding them in, and he's been a lot more effective against them. So I buy into Tyler Mahle actually being good. The issue is just that he's kind of expensive on sites other than Yahoo, and the matchup is a pretty tough one. So it's not like he's a huge priority here. It's more something where if I get there, it's fine, but also just keep in mind that he has had some tough matchups this year, and when he does finally get a good one, we're probably going to want to go there because I think he really actually is good. And as far as Darvish, like the strikeout upside is there. We don't know what Darvish you're going to get. I mean, the walk percentage is really high as well, but he struck out 28.6% of hitters this year. He's walked 16.6. He's given up 1.5 home runs per 9. The Reds aren't the scariest offense, but they do have some power, especially if the wind's blowing out. That would obviously help them. So neither of these pitchers give me a whole lot of confidence in their respective matchups, but I think that given the lack of mid-range options on the slate, I'll probably end up getting to some in tournaments.
All right, now one call that I do want to give to Tyler Mahle here on FanDuel, 8,300. Now, it's a 3-game slate. We have to choose one pitcher. Everybody is there are no really great ones. Yu Darvish is going to have the name value. Kyle Gibson is probably going to have the better implied run total against, potentially J.A. Happ. I don't really like those guys, but if we consider Mahle or Darvish, Mahle's 8,300. Now, this season in 93 hitters faced, he's got a 370 WOBA against from lefties and a 220. So he is kind of like Anthony Desclafani. I was going to go with Tony there, but Desclafani. But as Adam mentioned, he does actually have more talent. So this is something we think will correct. So if you're feeling a little frisky on that very early slate, Mahle is going to be somebody that does not have the best metrics. And as Adam mentioned, and I'm going to reaffirm, the wind is going to be blowing out. But we've seen with the reconstruction in Chicago, it's not like it used to be 5-6 years ago. So he is someone that probably will garner low ownership and does have decent strikeout upside this season combined, going against 200 batters, 93 lefties, 115 righties. He has a 26% strikeout rate. So that's pretty solid. Just want to call that one out there because, hey, different things can happen on different slates. Now, let's get back here to the next set of games. This is the 3 o'clock game. Cal Quantrill, that would be Cal Quantrill's kid, going against Edwin Jackson. By the way, Adam, Edwin Jackson set a record by pitching for Toronto. He has now pitched for more major league teams than any player in major league history.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is. I think it's 15 or 16. And I want to say it was Octavio Dotel was the person's record that he broke. So let me check that out. But do you like either of these guys in our lone 3 o'clock game?
I think you can look to Quantrill just because he's so cheap. He's $6K flat on DraftKings. I don't have the Yahoo pricing in front of me, but I assume he's cheap there as well, where you need a second pitcher. He's facing a Blue Jays team that is
30 and 29. Quantrill 30, Jackson 29.
Yeah. So he's facing a Blue Jays team that's really, really offensively challenged, at least early in the year. There are strikeouts there. He's not a pitcher that I think is particularly good, but at the same time, he's really, really cheap. And when you get pitchers that are like $6,000, it's kind of tough for them to fail. As long as they don't get blown up, you're pretty much okay. So I'm sure I'll have some Quantrill just because of his price tag.
All right. Octavio Dotel pitched for 13 teams in his 15-year career. Randomly overlap with Jackson for 11. This is courtesy of SB Nation. But Jackson has now pitched for 14 major league teams, so damn near half the leagues. That's impressive. I mean, there's always a handful of guys that have hit, home runs in all of the active major league ballparks. I think, as certain ballparks have closed, like the Kingdome in Seattle and then went to Safeco Field darn near 20 years ago, there were a variety of people that had hit in more major league home runs in more major league parks than there were actually active parks. But holy cow, pitching for 14 teams, Adam. That's pretty impressive. I know he had a turn with the Nationals, maybe even 2. Did he ever end up with the Baltimore Orioles? Is the question.
If I remember right.
There we go. Oh, isn't baseball fun? Continuing along, now we're on the 4 o'clock slate. Both sites do have additional contests for these, as well as Yahoo, which, of course, when they start a slate, they go all the way through the end of it. Let's take a gander over here in San Francisco. We have the Diamondbacks for their second game. Taylor Clark, if you're streaming in season-long leagues, he's someone you're going to want to look at. Nice matchup here in one of the best pitching parks in the league. He is $26 on Yahoo, $29 for Andrew Suarez. We have an implied total of 8, which is a little higher than normal. I guess Clark probably go around 5 innings or so. Suarez, your mileage may vary. What do you like here of either of these pitchers?
Not a whole lot. For Clark, I just don't think he's particularly good. I don't expect him to stick around for very long in the majors. It is a good matchup, though. It is a good park, so you certainly can get there just because of the lack of other options around him. But I don't see anything that's particularly appealing about him. At AAA this year, he threw 33 2/3 innings in 7 starts. He struck out 15.9%. He has a steamer projection of 7.4 strikeouts per 9. He's just not that great. So not really that interested. And then Suarez, it scares me how much right-handed power is in the Diamondbacks lineup against him. He is a pitcher that had success at times last year, but has pretty much always given up home runs to righties, even at home in San Francisco. You have Kettle, Marte, Escobar, Jones, Walker, Ahmed, Murphy. Like, this is a very right-handed heavy lineup. The projected lineup actually has 0 lefties in it, and there is some power in there. So the spot really scares me for Suarez.
All right, now on to our next game, Miami at Washington. I had mentioned Miami as one of the teams to look to stack in the spotlight hitters and stacks. No, it wasn't because they were great, but they were going against a mediocre 27-year-old pitcher who had about a dozen major league innings over his 7 seasons, mostly spent in the minors. It's a little different now because we have Patrick Corbin. Now he's 11,500 on DK, definitely getting the dynamic pricing boost here against the Marlins. Marlins looking at a 3.2 implied run total. Sandy Alcantara is there at 69. Ooh, nice. 6,900. I'm going to say no to Alcantara, but yes to Corbin. How are you feeling about Corbin at that lofty price point?
If you can afford him, then I really like it because, I don't think he's as good as he was last year, but I still think he's really good, and I think the Marlins aren't very good. Their strikeout percentage against lefties is lower than against righties, as we would expect with how many righties are in the lineup. It's worth mentioning that Corbin's called strike plus swinging strike percentage is 33rd this year out of all starters that have thrown at least 300 pitches. For reference, that's sandwiched between Sonny Gray, Felix Hernandez, and then Jack Flaherty and Jameson Taillon. So not like he's not in bad company outside of Felix, but it's not like he's in, $11,000 company either. So it's more of a luxury play, I think. But, again, there's not a whole lot of pitching that you're really comfortable with. Like, there are talented pitchers on the slate, but there's not a whole lot of spots where I don't have anything negative to say about it. So if you can get to Corbin, I think that it's a really good spot for him. He is probably a bit overpriced though.
Yeah, and if we're looking at Yahoo, Corbin's at 59 on the full slate. Hyun Ryu comes in at 51. Morton at 47. Carrasco at 45. Mike Minor at 44. So he is definitely well above everybody. You will probably get him around 10 to 15% popularity there on Yahoo. So something to consider, but definitely you're going to be foregoing things at your other roster slots. Moving along here. Oops. What did I do here? DraftKings. There we go. Sorry, my apologies. The Mariners. Mariners and Mike Fiers. Yikes. So it's an intriguing one in Oakland. Now, one of the guys that does, has his own projection system out there, Adam is well ensconced in Major League Baseball, does like to point out from a fantasy perspective that Oakland suppresses strikeouts in Oakland Alameda Coliseum, no longer O.co, but we'll just call it O.co. It's because they have such a damn large foul ground area, both on the first and third baseline as well as behind the catcher. So it's really, while it's suppressing strikeouts, it just means more fouls are caught in the foul territory. So something to consider there. The other thing to consider, Mike Fiers, 300 no-hitters in Major League Baseball. He's got 2 of them, Adam. He's got 2 of them. That just doesn't seem right. What do you want with Fiers? Anything for Kikuchi? One thing to keep an eye on with Kikuchi, they're talking about, and they've already done it once this year, there's going to be certain starts where they're only going to let him go 40 pitches. Based on the price, and I haven't seen any news on that, I don't think that's going to be an issue in this start, but it is something to consider if you're going to go with him, and then especially if you're going to go with the opposition, because the Mariners are right up there with the Nationals and the Orioles as one of the worst bullpens in the league. Talk to us about the starting pitchers, Adam.
Yeah, I'm just more interested in the bats here. It's not a good park for hitting, obviously, with the expansive foul territory and the fact that the weather normally isn't conducive to hitting. But you have Fiers, who gives up power. He doesn't miss a lot of bats, and the Mariners have a lot of power. So I think that they're a stack that maybe goes a little bit overlooked, whether it's mini stacks or full stacks. But I kind of like targeting it against Fiers there. Kikuchi's been decent this year, not a high strikeout pitcher. It is a dangerous matchup against this Oakland team. Not a lot of strikeouts in that lineup against left-handed pitching, and Kikuchi's only struck out 19.3% of righties. So it's just a spot where, even though the park is favorable, for either of these guys to really give you the score that you're looking for at their price tag, they really need to go, 7+ innings and be really efficient. And that's just not something that I like to count on.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous once Kikuchi's gone around the league a couple times. Teams are getting him his 3rd, 4th time. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I liken him to about the same as Marco Gonzalez, just from a fantasy perspective there, from his teammate with the Mariners, fellow lefty. It'll be interesting to see how both of them develop. Now, a lot of times the guys that come over from the Japanese league have better off-speed stuff, breaking balls, etc., just because park's a little bit smaller. They don't throw the smoke as much as they do here in the U.S. for Major League Baseball. One thing I do want to point out, Chris with the K Davis, went on this disabled list. He had been dealing with a sore hip and essentially had played in maybe half of his games since May 5th, and most of those, the other half, were either DNPs or pinch hit appearances. So he's going to be out for the next 8 days at least. So that changes things up a little bit for Oakland. They still have a ton of power. It's going to boost some guys in the lineup. Piscotty should be hitting cleanup. You should see Mark Conha batting 3rd or 6th, depending on what they're doing with Matt Chapman. And then, of course, you have Chad Pinder, second base or outfield eligible, depending on your site of choice. But he's still reasonably priced. Just want to call that out going against Yusei Kikuchi. Now, we have a couple semi-aces, not quite in the top 10, but they've been there based on their matchups. We have Charlie Morton going against Carlos Carrasco. Morton at 9,800 on DK, Carrasco 10-4. Yeah, I'd make a good joke about 10-4 Good Buddy, but nobody remembers trucker movies unless you're my age. What do you like here with Morton or Carrasco?
Yeah, I mean, pretty interested in both pitchers
I
because you do
heard
get
you
a
roll your eyes there, Adam. I heard
yeah,
it.
uh, you do get a discount from Corbin to these guys. It's not a huge discount, but still, $1,100 to Carrasco on DraftKings, and then a little bit more to Morton. Carrasco leads the slate with a 30.4% strikeout percentage. Morton second at 29.7%. With Morton, you get the walks, an 11.1% walk percentage compared to 4.2 for Carrasco. So that's an issue, especially on whip sites, but still a favorable matchup for Morton against the Indians. And then a bit more dangerous matchup, I think, for Carrasco against Tampa because of how much power they have. But there are also strikeouts in that lineup. Carrasco ranks 16th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage this season at 32.1%. Morton's 12th at 32.4%. So, two pitchers that grade out well in that statistic, which is one that I like to look at. So definitely interested in both pitchers here.
All right. Morton has struck out less than 5 only once this season, and he is generally going to be in the upper 80s, low 90s for pitch count. So if you're looking for a price per dollar on pitch count, that is something to consider. Who in the heck is going in our next game here? Let me scroll down. It's the LOL Mets, and I think I scrolled past them, so let's get back up there. Oh, goodness gracious. Mets. There we are. We have, it should be Jason Vargas and Ryan Carpenter. Yikes. Ryan Carpenter, not a good pitcher, but the Mets are missing several players with Cano on the DL, Nimmo on the DL. Excuse me. Sounds like Michael Conforto could be back. It's a lefty-lefty matchup for him. He's been out on with a concussion. Vargas coming back off the DL. We like to target pitchers against Detroit, particularly now that they've lost the designated hitter, with this being in a National League park, though they still have some good hitters there with Goodrum, Castellanos, and, well, I guess Miguel Cabrera is in the Tony Gwynn phase of his career, meaning that he's, since the beginning of last season, he's hitting about 290 with, what, I think 12 home runs? Not good. Not good, Adam. What do you want here with Carpenter? Okay, enough about him. What do you want with Vargas?
Nothing there either. I don't have interest in either pitcher. Just give me all the bats from this game. Ryan Carpenter is really bad. Tigers bullpen is really bad. Mets have some right-handed power, and for the most part, they're not expensive. The only guys that are expensive are Alonso and Conforto, and they're actually good at hitting. So I love the Mets here against Carpenter in this bullpen. And then you get some cheap price tags on Detroit, so I'd rather go to them than Vargas as well.
All right, now if I haven't gone out of order, I think this may be our last 4 o'clock game here. We've got Jake Arrieta going against Ulysse Chassin. We know Chassin is good against righties, or at least adequate at this point in his career. Still struggles against lefties, but it looks like the Phillies, outside of Bryce Harper, Odubel Herrera, and the switch-hitting Cesar Hernandez, do not have a ton of righties, or probably lefties, heavy on the righties. Any interest at Chassin at 6,200 or Arrieta at 7,500 on DK?
I think Chassin is like mildly interesting just because of the price point. It's not the most favorable, matchup as far as hitter talent because the Phillies do have good hitters. But like you said, it is a very right-handed heavy lineup. In the projected lineup, you have Bryce Harper, Cesar Hernandez, and Odubel Herrera as the only left-handed hitters. So, 6 righties. Jake Arrieta, I'll go ahead and count as a hitter because he's not the worst hitting pitcher, but he's still right-handed. For the season for Chassin, you have a 21.8% strikeout percentage, 305 xWOBA, 139 expected ISO. Since the start of last season, he struck out 23.4% of righties. It's just a really cheap price tag. And, you look at guys in that price range, your options basically, because I'm not looking for like a Ryan Carpenter type guy. So your options are basically Ulysse Chassin against a bunch of righties, Quantrill against Toronto, and Junis against the Yankees. There's no answer in there where it's like, oh, this is the clear-cut, really good spot. So I expect I'll probably either end up with my exposure spread out between the 3, or if the field clearly prefers one over the other, then I would expect that I end up with my exposure going towards the 2 that the field doesn't have.
And that makes sense. And we'll have some more clarity. We should have some lineups when we do the DFS strategy show. Again, that will be Saturday at 11:15. We will go through all of the games at a leisurely pace. So for Adam and I, full 16 game slate, that probably means an hour. For Josh and Laffy, that would mean about 4 hours. So you'll have to see what happens there, but we have you covered. One other fun note, check out my pinned tweet. You can get in on the Fred Van Elite fan club contest. Good God, I hope Toronto does not make the finals just so I can stop playing Fred Van Vliet. But apparently he had a kid and remembered how to shoot. So the last 2 games he's been pretty solid. I have to play him in the showdown slate, seeming like a little bit better chance here for me to at least maybe cash and not finish in the bottom 5 like I have. But check that out. It's a DraftKings league. Go to my pinned tweet. You'll get the hyperlink to join the Awesemo DraftKings League. That is where we post these contests. The winner of this $1 contest, 50-person contest, top 10 are paid. Normal DK rules. But the winner, if you have an Awesemo avatar, you get 1 month of full premium content access, which is very worth it. That's a $60 value there. Jump on in that. It's definitely a good time. And I think 5 of the last 6 winners have all had Awesemo avatars. So make sure you get one on there. I'll have the link to that as well in my pinned tweet. So give it a gander and have a little bit of fun, particularly at my expense, because that's the best kind of fun. Right, Adam?
Yes, sir.
All right. With that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. We're doing this in just under 40 minutes. You can get Adam over there on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.